Welcome. Today, we're not just exploring an idea, we're launching an investigation. We're going to run a full source code audit on reality itself, looking for the signal in the noise. For as long as we can remember, we've been handed this choice. Either the entire universe is just some chaotic, random accident, or its origins are a mystical secret, something you have to take a huge leap of faith to believe in. But what if that's a false choice? What if the creator isn't some mystery you're supposed to fear, but a system you can actually verify? That's what this is all about today, shifting from just believing something to rationally understanding it. So let's begin the audit. All right, so any good investigation starts by defining the tools and the data. Before we audit the system, we gotta know what we're looking for and what we're looking with. First up, the data. In this system, the data points are called ayat. Now, think of these as systemic signatures that are all around us. In physics, in biology, in the cosmos, they are the hard evidence embedded right into the fabric of reality, just waiting for us to analyze them. So how do we process all this data? Well, we use our FITRA, our internal architecture. This is basically your pre-installed logic. It's the rational mind that's already calibrated to recognize and process these signatures. The point isn't to invent truth, it's that you already have the hardware to receive the signal that's being broadcast. The source material we're looking at frames this whole reality as a coherent, truthful system. This line from a poem really sets the stage. We're looking at a reality that's founded on truth and coherence, not chaos. Those echoing spheres aren't just random, they're singing a name. Okay, this brings us to a really critical paradox, one that seriously challenges our whole idea of what power even is. And it builds directly on this idea of a coherent system. So here's the big question, the one at the heart of our audit. If we're told God is all-powerful, then why can't God lie? Why can't God be unjust? Is that a limit on his power? Well, the answer completely reframes the entire definition of omnipotence. This is a huge intellectual pivot point. On the left, you've got this idea of arbitrary might, brute force, the power to do absolutely anything, even things that make no sense. But on the right, you have coherent power, and this is the power to actualize all logical possibilities. In this system, illogical things aren't choices at all. They're just meaningless noise. Let's make this super concrete. Creating a square circle? That's not a test of power, it's just a contradiction in terms. The definitions cancel each other out. Same thing with an unmovable object and an irresistible force. And this brings it home. For a being whose very nature is truth, lying isn't a failure of power, it's a logical impossibility. It just doesn't compute. So here's the bottom line, and this is so important. These aren't limitations. They are the guardrails of meaning itself. An all-powerful being doesn't operate outside of logic. It is the source of logic. To act against it would be to act against its own nature, which is just incoherent. Now, to make this idea even clearer, the source material gives us this really powerful analogy. Let's start thinking about reality not as some random event, but as a very deliberate construction project. Let's break down this code. The universe? That's the finished building. The laws of physics? Those are the raw materials used to build it. The Quran, in this analogy, serves as the architect's blueprint, the actual documentation that explains the design, the purpose, the whole intent. And your role in all this? You're the trustee, put in charge of managing this incredible structure. And here is where it all connects back to our main question. A blueprint tells you everything about the architect. A perfect blueprint, one that's coherent, consistent, and has a clear purpose, implies a perfect architect. For that architect to be unjust or false, well, that would be a fundamental contradiction in the design of the building itself. The whole system would just collapse. This verse illustrates the idea beautifully. Our human sense of morality, of right and wrong, it isn't something we just invented out of thin air. It's a reflection, like a tiny brook mirroring a huge eternal stream. We derive it from the perfect moral order that is the very nature of the architect. So if we're the trustees of this massive architectural project, what does that actually mean for us, day to day? This is where all that theory becomes intensely practical. Get this, your job isn't to just passively submit to something you don't understand. It is to be an active administrator of the system. To be a good trustee, you have to understand the blueprint, right? You have to get the nature of the materials and the intent of the architect. It's an active, intellectual, hands-on role. And this completely reframes how we think about error, or what's traditionally called sin. In this systemic view, an error is just a form of inefficiency. It's intellectual dishonesty. It's trying to run the system in a way that goes against its core design, against a reality that is axiomatically true. It's not about just breaking a rule. It's about being incompetent in your job as an administrator. So, all of this, the data points, the internal logic, the architect's blueprint, it all leads to one really profound conclusion about the role of your own mind in this whole process. And this is the key takeaway. The entire framework is designed not for some blind leap of faith into the darkness, but for a confident step of certainty based on verifiable evidence. Your reason, your fitra, is the tool for that verification. Faith becomes the logical conclusion of a successful audit, not the starting point. To put it as plainly as possible, your faith is your competence. It's your proven ability to understand the system, to read the blueprint, and to act in a way that's in harmony with the design. It's a measure of how effective you are as a trustee. So we end with a question, a direct challenge to you. The system is laid out, the blueprint is available, and you have the internal architecture to analyze it. The choice isn't between chaos and mystery anymore. The real choice is, will you conduct the audit, verify the system, and assume your role?